Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. It gives me great pleasure to announce, live from the outer space, it's Chicago Vintage with Ken Roddy.
See a 59 Ford Fairlane. There's certain people out there that get wound up whenever they see an Art Deco house. There are people out there that get wound up when they see an Electrolux vacuum cleaner. There are people out there that go crazy for Hewlett Duval 45s from the 1950s. This is the program for all of those people rolled into one. I'm your host, Ken Motti. This is the Chicago Vintage Show. And because of this show, since on this show we're going to be talking about all kinds of vintagey things, we thought we'd start things out with a little bit of vintage news. The good news is that in 1956, Elvis Presley released his hit song, Heartbreak Hotel. The song topped the Billboard 100 for 7 weeks, which is why I'm so confused as to why my heartbreak ballad, Mononucleosis Motel, is gaining no traction at all on SoundCloud. In 1958, NASA was founded. NASA, of course, being the acronym for Nerds and Space Assholes. NASA continues to inspire that annoying guy at the end of the bar who will always let you know that you cannot be an astronaut while you're just trying to smoke your menthol in peace. Xerox announced the unveiling of the very first commercial photocopier in 1959. And I don't think I even need to show you the graph of the exponential growth of Xeroxed butt cheeks since then. The baby boom. The baby boom peaked at 4.3 million born in 1957, and an astounding 4.3 of them know how to navigate an iPad. Well, the FDA approved the birth control pill in 1960, a huge step forward for women's reproductive rights. Wait, hold, hang on. He what now? He nominated who for the Supreme Court? Wait, that guy? Well, okay. A huge step forward for women's reproductive privileges, I guess. Well, I'm Ken Motti, and that's news to me. This is the Chicago Vintage Show, and this time around, man, we are just jugged. We've got more entertainment than you can imagine. We have, believe it or not, Beth Wagner is back from Scales and Tails. We have musician farmer Dennis Lacey. And right here on our stage, they will be just knocking it out for you. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please say hello to Miss Barbara Clifford and the Shakin' Tail Feathers.
Oh my baby, really can't make me fly. Oh Remember when we used to kiss before the day I'd even begun? You slipped me a note to say I love you when you weren't around. A little note, a little kiss, a little love can make the world go round. Hold on, baby, I love you, baby. Hold on, baby, let me love you, baby. 'Cause I want you, I need you, I love you. Hold on, baby, I love you, baby. Hold on, baby, let me love you, baby. 'Cause I want you, I need you, I love you. I turn around to look at you and I start to walk away, to get a little glimpse of you turning back to do the same. A little turn, a little glimpse, a little we can give me such a big chill. Remember when we danced the night away and never let go? Dance real close and never let anyone in our world. A little dance, a little squeeze, a little stare is all I need in this floor. Hold on, baby, I love you, baby. Hold on, baby, let me love you, baby. 'Cause I want you, I need you, I love you. 'Cause I want you, I need you, I love you. 'Cause I want you, I need you, I love you. You came a long way from Chicago. You climbed the ladder of success. I've seen a lot of fancy cars that were parked out in front of your fancy address. You came a long way from Chicago. You broke a lot of hearts between.
Oh my baby, really kinda making me fly. Oh my baby, makes me just wanna die.
Mabuha, my brother. Mabuha. Take a look at that. I have a very special guest on the show, someone who has been important to me musically, someone who made me realize that, hey, music is for everybody. And if you just put your shoulder to the wheel and spend some time learning how to play your instrument, you can entertain people. Ladies and gentlemen, all the way from the beautiful city of Gary, Indiana, would you please say hello to my friend, Mr. Dennis Lacey. Oh, stop. Let's see. Good to take it. Spicy. Wow.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, it's Dennis. We are coming to the folks who are watching the show. They know that we're here at the beautiful Out of Space in beautiful Berwyn, Illinois, also known as
Music Suburb USA.
Yes. You're the man that named the city of Berwyn, Illinois, Music Suburb USA.
It's kind of crazy. It was back in about 2008 or 2006 or 2007, 2008. We were playing a festival out in the Hideout called Day in the Country. Lawrence Peters, the Day in the Country fans. And I was up on stage and we were talking about recording the CD at Mike Sharp's place. And it was out in Berwyn and I said, Music Suburb USA. And I remember Sally Timms was there. Sally Timms was she just busted out laughing, just like, who is this guy? He's just crazy.
Well, now, this record was recorded in Music Suburb USA. And oddly enough, so was this little record that I happen to be a part of.
There it is. Ken Martin. There it is.
Notice how my record still has a price tag on it because it could be yours for $5. Dennis, I want to go on the public record and saying you were the main reason that I made this record because I talked to you and I said, do you think maybe I should make a record? And you said, why not?
Yeah.
And here we are.
And why not? You should. Everybody should. Ken, does anybody have Ken's CD? Has anybody listened to it? It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Our good friend Doug Friedman, who spins records, often plays one of the songs off of my record. I really appreciate that.
Man, it was beautiful. So it was one of those, like, as a series of gentle musical nudges, got us to the point where we decided to record, and so we did.
How did you start playing the guitar? Because I know it's a story that, I know all of Dennis's story, like I know all of Milt Trenier's story, so all I do is steer Dennis to the good stories that I know. How did you quote unquote, pick up the guitar?
Oh goodness, well, my musical career actually on the guitar comes out of a dumpster. My friend Jay Witt, well I moved out here, I'm originally from Western Pennsylvania, and I used to play, in college I played trombone.
Ooh, there's a moneymaker.
Yeah, what's the difference between a pizza and a trombone player?
What's that?
The pizza can feed a family of 4, but yeah. No, I came out and I didn't have any place to practice, and I kind of lost my social network of music. So met a few friends, and one of them my friend Jay Witt found 2 guitars in a dumpster in Elmwood Park, and he actually gave me one of them. And since I didn't have many friends, and I had sort of this long-standing love of music and old blues and everything, taught myself how to play. So just kind of got on and threw some fledgling things on the internet. Of course, we're talking about like late 90s internet, so there wasn't a lot out there to really learn from. YouTube didn't exist yet, and there was that kind of stuff. But just listened to a lot of music and just learned how to play and taught myself. And then, I met at a Deke Dickerson show, believe it or not. Casey and McDonough and I met at Fitzgerald's.
There you go.
And
there you go.
We met, hit it off, and it just we decided to start playing together and played at Barb Clifford's coffee shop. Actually, that's where we first got our first start. Barb Clifford's Mojo's up on Belmont.
Everybody knows.
It's not there anymore.
Everybody knows everybody else. So how is it that you gravitated to what, in essence, we would call the Merle Travis style of thumb picking?
Well, when you're alone and it's just you and you don't know anybody.
That's what she said.
It's
wait for the joke. Wait for the laugh here. We might be here a while.
We might be here a while before that laugh happens, but it's there. No, well, there's something about the old self-accompanied blues guys from way back when. But the Merle Travis stuff, my dad was a big Merle Travis fan. I remember one time, I think he was listening to the Opry in our dining room, and he just this.
You had an opera in your dining room?
No. We were listening to it on the radio. He had this old transistor.
I misunderstood.
From and we were listening, and he was like, "This is one guy," and it sounded like 2 or 3 guys on a guitar, which was really cool. But the neat thing about the Travis style is you're providing your own bass, your own rhythm, and your own sort of musical accompaniment. And if you sing or do anything on top of that, I sing and sometimes I whistle. On top of that, it's you're kind of putting a band out of work at a certain point, so you can kind of go anywhere with it. And one of the measures I have for a successful musician is if you go somewhere and you don't have music, you can just kind of make it, or if you can make it better than what's there or whatever. That's sort of a measure of success of being able to do that. So I can really go anywhere, and it lends itself nicely to jazz, to blues, to any of the root stuff. I think a lot of the early rockabilly guys were really inspired by Merle Travis. He was sort of, to me, a ground zero for a lot of that. So if you listen to a lot of old bluegrass, if you go to any bluegrass festivals, there's usually one guy that plays the Travis stuff, and all the bluegrass guys that and flat pick to death. They're all like, wow, that Merle Travis guy is amazing. In the rockabilly world, like Scotty Moore and Cliff Gallup and all those guys were all very influenced just from that sound of being able to do that. And of course, Chet Atkins came out and did his thing and kind of took it to the next level. But yeah, it's there's just something about being able to play the melody and the rhythm and everything, and it's sort of the complete version of guitar to me.
There you go. Now, you said you're originally from Pittsburgh?
About an hour north of Pittsburgh. Pennsyltucky is what it's called.
Okay.
If you're not from Pittsburgh or Philadelphia, you live in Pennsyltucky. It's basically, you might as well be in Arkansas.
So now you grew up in kind of rural settings, and tell me again, how many brothers and sisters?
I have 10 kids in my family, so I'm next to the youngest of 10. My dad worked for a coal mining company, so it's one of those, like, if you were going to write the bio for somebody who came to Chicago, it'd be like, well, he was next to the youngest of 10 kids, his father worked for a coal mining company, and found a guitar in a dumpster, and yeah, it's the whole...
Yeah, it's like right out of Central Casting. The reason I wanted to have you on the show, you're a musician, you know the history of a lot of music and stuff, but the important thing is you're also a farmer. You want to talk about
these people?
You want to talk about a vintage lifestyle? Try being on like a 1 or a 2-man farm in unincorporated Gary, Indiana.
Yeah, Cal Township.
Where did this idea come from?
Well,
because let's tell people, you lived in the suburbs of Chicago. Yeah. You're basically like kind of an IT guy, and then suddenly you went, yep, old Zeke here's going to put on his overalls and move to Hooterville.
Well, it's always kind of been in me, right? Because again, like next to the youngest of 10 kids, my parents didn't have a farm per se. Like we always had chickens and stuff growing up. And
of course.
My dad had acres, you know, that's just kind of what you do. But when you're in the country, it just kind of happens. But since there was 10 of us, my parents would sort of loan us out to our aunts and uncles, and we would work for them, like baling hay and milking cows and picking corn and apples and that sort of stuff. But it's always, I mean, it's never been far from me. So one of those things that the suburbs was kind of a compromise for me for a lot of years, in that, like, I'm used to having a lot more space and used to being a little bit more active, and it just kind of was one of those, okay, well, what happened? So I did get some chickens. You were allowed to have some chickens in Brookfield. I also got some ducks, which you're not allowed to have in Brookfield. One of the chickens got loose and went over to one of my neighbors. I had a lot of great neighbors, but I had one jerk neighbor. Went over to his yard, of course, started digging it up, and he called the police and the village. So I had at that point run afoul of the law.
Oh. Hey, I saw what you did there. That was a pun.
Anyway, it's terrible. So I decided, well, you know what, if I want to do this, I need to get away from the municipalities of the world and try to get to someplace a little better. So I started looking for places with a little more acreage and things I could do things with that were still manageable. At that time I was working from home, so I was able to do a lot more of the work. So I found this place in unincorporated Gary, Indiana, which if Gary is lawless, the unincorporated part is even more lawless. If you can imagine that. 4th of July is great, though.
Yeah. Holy cow.
But yeah, I got down there, and within like 2 weeks, I'd already gotten some chickens. I had to get rid of all my chickens in Brookfield, and ducks. So got a bunch of chickens down there. Now at this point, I have a bunch of chickens, a bunch of ducks, turkeys. We've got goats, a pig, cats, a rabbit. Or no, we got like 5 rabbits. Or somewhere, we did a count the other week. I do a count at the end of every month. We're around 121 animals right now, mostly chickens and ducks. So, yeah.
So now you do the farming, and you have a new band.
Yes, I do.
And you, what's the band called?
Tiny Horse. It's Dennis J. Lacey and Tiny Horse.
And you got some hot pickers in the organization.
Well, I load for bear. You know, it's one of those things where if you surround yourself with talented musicians, you can still suck but sound really good. And that's the rule. One of the rules of showbiz.
I do that as part of the Gin Palace Jesters, kids. That's not a...
Yeah. So I have Brian Wilkie on guitar, which most people know him from the steel playing of the Hoyle Brothers.
Yep.
If anybody knows the Hoyle Brothers. Mark Edelstein, who's one of the founding members of Special Consensus on upright bass. He plays all around town. Derek Martins on drums, who's a fantastic young drummer.
Maron.
And we play all kinds of stuff. We mostly like classic country, some rockabilly, some western swing.
And just whatever crosses your mind.
Whatever crosses my mind.
Dennis, that's what makes you such a special human being, and I'm glad you were able to stop by here at the Chicago Vintage Show. One more time, ladies and gentlemen. Again, his band is Tiny Horse, Mr. Dennis Lacey. We will be back with more of the Chicago Vintage Show. Thank you, brother.
Oh, my baby makes me just wanna die. Oh, my baby really can make me fly. Oh, my baby makes me just wanna die.
Wow. You are tuned to the Chicago Vintage Show, which is coming to you from the Outer Space in Berwyn. And we got a bunch of happy crew members and audience members because we just had a little something courtesy of Petey over at Paisan's Pizza. So thank you, Petey. Petey's also going to be one of our guest DJs here at one of our tapings in the very near future. So you might want to come along and be a part of that, okay? Okay. It's time for me to talk about the elephant in the room as far as being a rockabilly fan is concerned. What I'm talking about is, and I don't even know exactly how to bring this up except to say the name very quietly, and we'll all think about it for just a moment. Elvis Presley. Now I know you can get you can go either way when you say to somebody, oh yeah, I'm a rockabilly fan, and they say, oh, you mean Elvis Presley, because the minute you happen to mention the name of Elvis Presley, the first thing that somebody's going to say is, oh, you mean that guy? You mean with the jumpsuit and the big sideburns, that guy? And you have to go, well, yes and no. I will freely admit, I'm an old guy. I am an old guy. The very first thing that I knew of Elvis was watching TV on Sunday afternoons, and they would show his movies. One of my sisters went on a date one time, and she saw this movie, and I guess the boyfriend that she was dating actually gave her the soundtrack to Paradise Hawaiian Style, Elvis's second film that he made in Hawaii. This is one of those movies where Elvis goes into the ocean but never takes off his shirt, you know, that kind of thing. I remember as a kid staring at this album cover and going, I know that's his hair, but how does he do that? I want to do that. And I couldn't wrap my brain around what this was. Well, I got lucky. And fortunately for me, right in about 1976, again, I'm an old guy. The first time I really saw Elvis and really fell in love with him, I will admit, was the Elvis Aloha from Hawaii concert, 1972. It was a Tuesday night. It was on NBC. I sat there looking at that guy in that white jumpsuit and thinking to myself, this is the coolest human being I've ever seen in my entire life. I had no idea. None of us had any idea of the backstory. There were rumors that he might have problems with drugs or do crazy stuff. We had no idea just how crazy this guy was. He was a full-on Jethro. We didn't know that at the time. All I knew was here was this man in this amazing white suit with this amazing band, and the lights are going, and he could twitch his little finger and the audience would go crazy, and I thought, this guy is about the coolest thing that I ever saw. Well, RCA Records did me a favor because right before Elvis passed away, we're talking 1976, they came out with this album, The Sun Sessions. And being an Elvis fan, I had to have everything that Elvis had ever recorded. And I grabbed this record and I sat down with it and I said, that's all right, Mama. Blue Moon of Kentucky, Baby Let's Play House. This stuff started speaking to me in ways I had never imagined out of Elvis. I had to work my way backwards through his entire history to discover just how cool he was when he was a teenager. Now, the argument could be made that, you know, Elvis didn't invent rock and roll. Let's not even bother going there because there were a million artists who were working. But Elvis was the guy that kicked the door open, that made rock and roll okay for everybody, coast to coast, border to border, and then some. This was the first Elvis album that I ever bought. This was a TV record offer that came out right after he died. It had all the RCA hits, and I loved it, and I played it to death. These days, I bought this off of TV. I have 2 copies of this album at home, just in case one blows out. Now, in the last few years, for those of you who ever doubted just how cool Elvis actually was back in the 50s, the first guy to come out with a bunch of photos from Elvis back in the 50s was a guy named Alfred Wertheimer, who did a book in the late 70s, early 80s that was called Elvis 56. And it was pictures of Elvis from when he went to New York to be on some television show, to do some recording and whatnot. Well, a number of other books from other photographers have come out. All I have to say is, look upon his greatness. This guy couldn't have been cooler if he had tried. And he didn't really try. He was so casual about it. That's what made him so cool. I got another book recently. I picked this one up. My wife and I went to the Ameripolitan Awards that were held in Memphis, Tennessee in 2018, February of 2018. And I went to one of the Elvis gift shops and I found this book. And of course, it was way too expensive in the gift shop, so I came home, found it on the internet. It was like 25% of what they were charging down there. I bought it, and it had the greatest pictures I've ever seen. We've all heard the stories about how Elvis used to get his clothes ripped off at concerts. Here's a picture of Elvis in the dressing room after having his pants shredded by his fans. This proves it. The guy was that cool. They were going that crazy. Absolutely nuts, absolutely insane stuff. I love these photos, but just recently in the last couple of years, and I want to thank my friend Al Simon, his wife Randy Ladden, because they told me about an Alfred Wertheimer book that just came out in the last few years. That's the biggest book of Elvis pornography for guys like me that like to look at pictures of Elvis in the 50s. Do they get any cooler than this? Do they get any cooler than a guy in a Harley Davidson cap, sitting on his Harley Davidson, out in the backyard of his house at 706 Audubon Way, long before he had the house at Graceland? But the picture that kills me, this picture just kills me. Here's Elvis recording Hound Dog at the RCA studios in New York, listening to the playback. You don't get any cooler than that. So I have pleaded my case to you. If you don't like Elvis, that's fine, but just know, ladies and gentlemen, that when you're talking to the young man who was lucky enough to host the Chicago Vintage Show, this is a man who's had Elvis tattooed on his arm for more than 30 years, kids. We'll be right back with more of the Chicago Vintage Show. Mabuhay. Mabuhay. Everybody sit up straight and look cool. This is the Chicago Vintage Show. We are at the Out of Space in beautiful Berwyn. I'm here, obviously, with Barb Clifford and the Shakin' Tail Feathers. It's up to you to guess which one is Barb Clifford. I'm going to go with you.
It is me.
Yay! This is Barb Clifford.
Tis I.
First of all, I owe you a brief apology because I know that the holiday season came and went a number of months ago, and I meant to send you a Christmas card, and I sent you a Christmas card. I forgot to put a stamp on it. It came back, so there's your Christmas card.
Oh, thank you. Christmas in July. Isn't that actually, some people say Christmas in July?
That's a song by the Elvis Brothers.
Yes, Elvis Brothers.
Tell them how we met. Sorry to leave you all out, but...
I'm going to cut you out. Okay,
Yeah.
actually, I'm so glad I know you, and this makes me more comfortable, because I'm so iffy with interviews.
Okay, well,
Shakin'.
it's no surprise to people that you've taken your music career overseas on numerous occasions. They've probably had you do some little radio interviews and stuff, and that's probably...
Only once.
And
only once.
It happens.
And it was awful.
Oh.
It was in Barcelona.
In Barcelona.
Barcelona.
Barcelona. Hey.
Barcelona.
But
okay, so we met two bands ago for me.
Okay.
My 80s band called the Bedbugs. Thank you, Mary.
Yeah.
Must have been Mary.
The Bedbugs
The only
were
witness.
the Bedbugs were a rockin' little pop band.
Yes.
You and another female singer,
Jenny. Yes.
who was about 9 feet tall.
Yes. Towered over me.
Yes, she did.
So the Bedbugs, they were a 80s pop band, like Ken said, and Ken and I met because we used to play with the Elvis Brothers a handful of times,
Yep.
and Ken, of course, being way of the Elvis Brothers.
Yeah, the Elvis Brothers were a Chicago, they were a band that came from downstate Illinois that had quite a career in the 80s and 90s. They started out as kind of a rockabilly band, became a power rock pop band, that kind of thing. Had a great career. My intention is to have at least one of the guys from the Elvis Brothers on this show someday to talk about what they did, because they were mighty important.
They were notable enough to mention that they actually made MTV interviews, and their video got played on MTV quite a bit.
Yes, they did. When MTV was actually showing music videos.
They were the Chicago rockabilly band to kind of compete with the Stray Cats back then.
Right, exactly, the same thing.
So we had power.
So I met you when you were playing with that band.
Yes.
And we must have just yacked it up in the bar or whatever. And from there you started a band.
The Honeybees, by way of Rob Crow and Lisa Crow, his wife, who played bass for us, and Teresa over there was our original drummer for that as well. My longest running bandmate.
Let's just take a half a second. We might even let her speak, because we are sitting next to, number one of the best damn drummers in Chicago, and also she's played in rockabilly bands, straight rock and roll bands, surf instrumental band.
Surf instrumental, yes.
You were in a little band called?
Surf instrumental, the Greaseballs.
A spectacular band.
Really, really just an honor to play with. Yes, Bill Belinsky, if you ever want to look him up. Yeah, he's a real deal.
Bill Belinsky, who was part of a garage rock band in Minnesota in the early 60s, I believe.
That is right. And
so,
of course, I'm going to blank on the name.
That's okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
And then when I met you, you would have been playing in one of those bands with Pat Michaels, maybe the Mummies.
The Mummies, and I played with the Fireflies.
Fireflies.
Yeah, Fireflies and the Mummies, and with you at
Happy Village.
Happy Village.
Happy Village.
Yes.
Oh boy, that was
And I have to say, that was by way of playing with Ken at Happy Village, and I learned a lot of country chops that I enjoy playing today. So.
And you're now playing a band called the Crop Duster 4.
That's right, Crop Duster 4.
Absolutely. So she's a very busy woman now.
And Lonesome Still.
And Lonesome Still. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So let's go back to Honeybees, right?
Yeah. That band?
Should I interview you?
Oh, they know about me all the way down to my bra size, so everything's cool. Introduce the rest of the band here. We know Teresa Durda.
Right. Teresa Durda on the drums, always. My longest running bandmate.
A woman whose last name is perilously short of vowels.
Yes.
That's right.
It's spelled D-R-D-A. It looks like a typo.
Dr. Dog.
I'll bet you spell check loves your name, man.
Okay, then over there, since we'll go around, that's Tony T-Bone Whitrock. Which I could tell a funny story about him later. And then we got Michael Georges on the bass.
Solid.
Who is married to Teresa.
So, watch yourself, boys.
And then behind me is Mike Burns. He's the junior member of this band. And then there's me.
And aren't they the best dressed band? Look at this wardrobe. Look at these outfits. These.
Actually, you guys fit well with the silver, black, silver. And then Great.
Pretty spectacular. Tell me about, you remind me of when you mentioned Tony, tell me about going to Europe with your music. How did you manage to make that happen? Because you've played the Screamin' Festival.
Screamin', High Rockabilly, Tours France this past year, the Bombardment in Austria.
Yes.
Barcelona, we said that High Rockabilly Screamin' Festival on the other side.
Yeah.
Croatia,
Wow.
Tear It Up. Let's count Montreal for Red Hot Blue.
Yes. And how do they treat you? I'm assuming they treat you pretty good because, number one, you're a great musician, but also, face facts, you're an American playing American music. Absolutely. The greatest music. The greatest music that you ever knew, as the Blasters said.
It's really, really hotels, food, drinks. Pick us up from the airport. It's great.
And then you come back home and go, okay, now I'm no longer.
Okay, now we play for a tip jar. Woo!
Yay! I'm no longer international superstar Barb Clifford. Yay! Now I'm just Barb who has to take care of her house.
Barb, the flight attendant. Yeah. Woo!
I don't know if it was your story about Tony, but he sustained an injury in the line of duty in Europe.
Oh yeah, we went to the Bombardment and in Austria, and after the festival, we all went to Munich for Oktoberfest. And we had to end up splitting parties because some wanted to stay longer and we had to get back. So we went to go take a train back to the part of Germany we were staying at, which my boyfriend lives in, Lindau. And Tony took a nice slip as he was stepping up onto the train and scraped his whole front leg as he was climbing in and got stuck, and the train started to move, and you said some guy just pulled you up on there while the track's moving, slid him back up on that same scratch, and then they told him he could have had a staph infection by the time he got back home. He did have a staph infection.
You couldn't wear cowboy boots.
Rock and roll.
He couldn't wear boots for the longest time because of the yikes.
Yeah.
Took one for the team. That's Tony Whitrock, everybody.
Yes, indeed.
Do you have filthy stories about anybody else in the band before we move on?
Maybe I'll just
leave it.
tight.
Just leave it at that. So there was a record that you did a while back that I got to be honest, I am so grateful for you doing this record. This was called Introducing Barbara Clifford.
Recorded in Switzerland.
Recorded in Switzerland, and you recorded a handful of songs that I wrote.
Yes, I generally wrote all the songs for Honeybees. I would say 80%.
And damn good songs, too.
I had when they asked me to make that record, I had a bad brain cloud that I couldn't write. So I asked you for some songs, and you gave me some songs, and then we recorded them on there.
You turned them into Barb Clifford songs, and
so I thank you.
I am so grateful to anybody that has picked up on these little chicken scratches that I've turned into songs. So I can't say thank you enough.
Oh, thank you.
How about we take a brief break, and then we're going to hear a little bit more music from Barb Clifford and the Shakin' Tail Feathers. Right now we're going to send it back over to Rico and to Doug Friedman, the International Man of History. Thanks to Paisan's Pizza, thanks to Jivin.com, and of course to the Out of Space right here in beautiful Berwyn, Music City, Music Suburb, USA.
Something really well, if you get all your coworkers to applaud for you, you'll be amazed at how good you feel. That's having people applaud for you. That's the best. She's been here before and she's back again. She comes to us from an operation called Scales and Tails that teaches morons like me all about little amateurs fundamentals, would you please say hello to Beth Wagner?
You know, everybody loves barbacoa fruit, that's for sure, okay?
Yeah.
But actually, I chose an animal for Teresa because when she's rocking those drums, she usually has her hair spiked up.
Oh, yeah.
So I brought something for you, actually. And maybe we should do some third grade questions.
Please.
Okay.
Because
And I'm going to ask you guys, who's got a hairbrush at home? Anybody got a hairbrush? Anybody here afraid of their hairbrush? I hope not.
a little bit.
What kind of animal would feel spiky like a hairbrush? Porcupine, great guess, but this is not for a porcupine. A porcupine's really big, they're sweet, they're kind, they're nice, but nobody can touch a porcupine because every quill on a porcupine is very, very loose. And at the end of the quill is a barb. And the second that barb hits your skin, it goes right into your skin. People started a rumor that porcupine quills, they can shoot their hair, but they can shoot their quills.
Yeah.
But that's only because as soon as it hits your blood, it spreads. So it makes it really hard to get out. So I can't bring a porcupine, but I did bring Sonic, Hedgehog.
I don't think any of them. I know I've never seen a hedgehog in.
Tell me that isn't cute. You know what? Every mom loves a hedgehog, okay? I have no idea why, all right? Well, maybe it's because they can have babies every 36 days from the day they're born, okay? And they're the size of your thumbnail when they're born, but I'll tell you what, I wouldn't really want to be a hedgehog.
Is that as big as a hedgehog gets?
Well, this is an African pygmy hedgehog, so yes, this is as big as this one gets. Let's see how fast that hedgehog goes. Hold on.
Okay, here you go. Yeah, he's not following directions.
No, they don't go that fast. No. See, they don't have to go fast. All they have to do is roll in a ball and turn into a pincushion, just like that. And so, why don't you try touching that?
It's the same sort of defensive mechanism as like an armadillo. Is it the same sort of?
True. These guys are true insectivores. And that means that they eat insects, of course. And a lot of animals do that, but there's only one animal that's a true insectivore, and that's the hedgehog and the tenrec. It's the only family. They're really interesting looking little animals.
There will be a quiz after this segment, so.
Well, you can find bigger hedgehogs in Europe. So
that's what Europeans have been saying for years.
Right.
I don't believe them. Make American hedgehogs great again.
What is an African hedgehog?
Oh, well, I'm saying, the American. So now, what sort of an environment do they live in? Do they live on the ground? Are they in high?
Oh, that's kind of why they call them hedgehogs.
They live in hedges?
Yeah.
Well, now, how many hedges are out there?
Yeah, that's true. That I don't know the answer to.
Well, so they just kind of live in the underbrush.
Yes.
Are they burrowers?
A little bit.
A little bit?
Especially for worms and crickets and
so they eat
things like that.
So they eat strictly insects. They don't
strictly insects.
Wow.
Such a cute guy. I don't know how they turn blue and ended up in the
run around.
I have no idea.
Wow. So now when they have, do they have litters? And if so, how many?
Their babies are the size of your thumbnail, but the first day they are born, they're thank God for the mom, in case there was a breech birth, they don't have any quills. And the first day they grow a whole inch. Even human babies don't grow a whole inch.
Don't grow that. Yeah.
So they grow very, very fast.
So if the female hedgehog is able to have that many, it can be pregnant that many times, does that mean that male hedgehogs have really big grins?
Some of them. Some of them.
That's like an old-timey Johnny Carson Tonight Show line. Come on.
These also make really good pets.
Do they?
Yeah, they only live about 8 years, which is just the perfect time if you're going to buy your child a pet. And you know what?
Speaking as the warmest mother.
Wait, hold on. If you had a bunny or a chinchilla, they live about 15 years, and the bad ones live forever, okay? So you'd rather have a hedgehog as a pet. And these guys eat a pelleted food now. They have a special food for them, so it's really easy to take care of them.
So there is hedgehog chow.
Yeah.
Cool.
Chow.
All the more reason I'm getting me a hedgehog. Now, do they, if you only have one hedgehog, now I know that some animals
Well, then you don't have a lot of other hedgehogs.
Well, I'm just saying, a hedgehog living by himself or herself as a hedgehog, do they get bummed out because there are no other hedgehogs?
I don't know. That's a good question.
I mean,
I don't have the answer to that one.
Because I know there's some people, oh, well, our second dog died, so we're going to get another dog to keep the first dog company.
Well, this guy, she was, this is a girl, actually.
Okay.
And she was not very nice to her man, okay? Ooh. So she had to be separated from them.
Really?
So, yeah.
Was she like biting the heads off?
It was one of the heads, yes.
Oh! Joke right there. Wiener joke. In case you missed it.
So I don't know. I don't trust her. I trust her at shows, but not with other males.
Fantastic. So now, how did this hedgehog come to be part of?
You know, I get animals from people that don't want them anymore.
Okay.
And so then I'm kind of lucky, that somebody didn't want a hedgehog.
So as always, tell people the name of your operation and what you do.
Yeah. My company's name is Scales and Tails Traveling Zoo. And we're a traveling zoo. We do an educational encounter with exotic animals. And you get to meet all different types of animals.
Cool.
It's very hands-on. It's really unique.
For the first time on the Chicago Vintage Show, a hedgehog. More for Bart Clifford and the Shakin' Tail Feathers. Right now, we go back to this young man behind the records up there. Make some noise for us, boss.
Oh my baby makes me just wanna die. Oh my baby really can make me fly. Oh my baby makes me just wanna die.
As Jed Bonensing of the Riptones used to say, this place is up for grabs. We want to thank you all for being here, for being part of the Chicago Vintage Show. You're going to see some moves on this dance floor, many of them courtesy of our good friend Sophia Wolf at www.jiving.com. This has all been coming to you from the outer space. Thanks again to Paisan's Pizza. I didn't get any on my tie, I hope. Ladies and gentlemen, closing things out, they are going to blow the roof off the dump. Please say hello once again to Barb Clifford and the Shakin' Tail Feather.
Snatch it back and hold it, oh baby, one more time. I ain't doing too bad, babe. I got you on my mind. Hey, 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 we'll have a real darn good time. Somebody help me, 'cause I can't help myself. Well, somebody got to help me, 'cause I can't help myself.
I just wanna swap. Wait a minute, just a ringing a bell. Wanting to hell and all we get is hell. Oh my baby, really kind of making me fly. Oh my baby, makes me just wanna die. Nothing really waiting about this day, getting caught up in her game. Real cool baby, eyes of blue. Got a big problem staying true. Long back hair, it shines so bright. Still your soul with it, just one swap.